Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing what actually controls them. They wake up, they react, they repeat. And one day, years later, they wonder how time disappeared so quietly. If you're watching this, it's not an accident. Something in you already knows that life can be different, not louder, not faster, but deeper, sharper, and more intentional. This video is not motivation. It's not advice. It's not entertainment. It's a reset. If you truly understand the next 7 concepts, your behavior will change even if you don't try. Your decisions will feel clearer, your discipline will feel lighter, and most importantly, you will stop fighting yourself. Stay with this until the end, not because it's exciting, but because it's true. Everything you're about to hear is uncomfortable for one reason. It removes excuses. These concepts don't rely on talent, luck, confidence, motivation, or personality. They work whether you believe in them or not. They work quietly, the same way gravity works. Ignore them and life feels heavy. Align with them and life starts to move. People who succeed don't know something you don't. They practice things you avoid. Let's begin. Talent impresses. Consistency transforms. Talent is loud. It gets applause. It gets attention. People notice it immediately. But attention is not progress, and admiration is not results. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask to be seen. It simply shows up, again and again, long after the excitement has faded. Talent may open doors, but consistency is what actually walks through them and stays inside. Talent gives you a moment. Consistency gives you a life. Most people gamble everything on talent, on intelligence, confidence, creativity, or natural ability. They wait to feel smart enough, motivated enough, ready enough. And while they're waiting, someone else with less talent but stronger habits passes them. Not because they're better, not because they're lucky, but because they showed up today and yesterday and the day before that. Consistency works because it removes emotion from the equation. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel inspired. You don't need to feel confident. You only need to repeat. Repetition is powerful because the brain believes what it experiences often. Every repeated action strengthens a neural pathway. Every repeated choice becomes easier. What once required effort becomes automatic, and what becomes automatic becomes identity. You don't rise because you feel motivated. You rise because your behavior no longer depends on how you feel. This is how consistency rewires the brain, and a rewired brain creates a different life. The most dangerous myth you can believe is this: I'll start when I feel ready. Ready never arrives. Motivation fades. Confidence fluctuates. Energy disappears. If readiness were required, nothing meaningful would ever begin. Readiness is not a prerequisite. It is a result. You don't act because you feel ready. You feel ready because you acted. Action creates clarity. Action creates confidence. Action creates momentum. Waiting does nothing but protect your comfort. Consistency is not about doing more. It's about doing less more often. Small actions repeated daily outperform massive effort done occasionally. 1 page every day beats 1 book once a year. 10 minutes daily beats 3 hours once a week. Quiet discipline beats emotional intensity every time. And here's the truth most people miss. If you master consistency, everything else becomes optional. Talent becomes optional. Confidence becomes optional. Because when consistency is in place, progress happens even on your worst days, even when you're tired, even when no one is watching, even when it feels pointless. That's when it's working the most. Consistency doesn't change your life overnight. it changes it inevitably. Concept 2. Your environment shapes you more than willpower. Willpower feels powerful, but it's fragile. It fades with fatigue, stress, hunger, emotion, and time. Environment, on the other hand, doesn't get tired. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care how motivated you feel today. It simply applies pressure, quietly, constantly, every hour of every day. If your environment supports distraction, comfort, and escape, no amount of motivation will save you. You can listen to every motivational speech in the world, set ambitious goals, and swear that this time is different. But if your phone is always within reach, if junk food is always available, if noise surrounds you and comfort is effortless, your environment will eventually win. Not because you are weak, but because friction always determines behavior. People don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because their environment is stronger than they are. Look closely at your daily actions. They are not random. They are responses. You don't scroll because you lack ambition. You scroll because scrolling is easy. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because avoidance is nearby and effort is not. The brain follows the path of least resistance, and your environment decides where that path leads. This is why willpower is overrated and design is everything. When the right behavior is hard, it requires constant self-control. When the right behavior is easy, discipline becomes automatic. Put the book on the desk, not the shelf. Remove the phone from the room, not your thoughts. Prepare tomorrow's work today. Shape your space so that progress is the default. The most disciplined people in the world are not constantly fighting temptation. They've simply removed it. They don't rely on strength, they rely on structure. And structure beats motivation every time. Change what surrounds you, and behavior follows quietly. Not through force, not through struggle, but through alignment. When your environment supports focus, clarity, and effort, your actions begin to change without friction. You don't need to convince yourself. You don't need to argue with your emotions. You simply move in the direction your surroundings encourage. And once your environment is working for you instead of against you, willpower becomes a backup plan, not the foundation. Concept 3. Boredom is the gatekeeper of greatness. If you cannot tolerate boredom, you will never reach mastery. Not because you aren't capable, but because boredom is the final filter. It's the quiet test that removes everyone who is chasing excitement instead of results. The most powerful habits feel boring precisely because they work slowly. There is no rush, no dramatic payoff, no constant reward, just repetition. And repetition without novelty feels empty to the untrained mind. That's why most people confuse boredom with failure. They assume that if something feels dull, it must not be working. But boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that the process is working exactly as intended. Excitement is temporary. It always fades. Motivation spikes, then disappears. Inspiration burns hot and fast. Boredom, however, stays. It arrives after the honeymoon phase, when progress is real but invisible, when effort no longer feels heroic, and when no one is watching. This is where most people quit. Not because the work is too hard, not because they're incapable, but because it's no longer entertaining. They leave the gym when the mirror stops changing. They abandon the skill when learning becomes repetitive. They quit the goal when novelty disappears. And they call it losing interest, when in reality, they've just reached the doorway of mastery. Boredom is the gate. Most people turn back. The few who stay, calm, patient, unmoved, begin to separate from the crowd without realizing it. Their progress compounds quietly. Their skill deepens. Their confidence becomes internal instead of emotional. While others search for stimulation, they build substance. Mastery is not built in moments of excitement. It is built in long stretches of sameness. Doing the same thing again, on days that feel ordinary, with no applause, with no emotional reward. This is why boredom is powerful. It forces you to confront yourself without distraction. It removes noise. It exposes whether you're committed to the outcome or addicted to the feeling of progress. Once you learn to stay when things feel dull, your nervous system changes. You stop needing constant stimulation. You stop chasing motivation. You quit when the work becomes quiet. And from that moment on, very little can stop you, because you've passed the test most people never even recognize. Boredom is not your enemy. It is the price of admission. And the moment you stop running from it, greatness becomes inevitable.
Concept 4. Identity comes from action, not affirmation. You don't think your way into a new identity. You don't visualize your way into one. You don't affirm your way into one. You act your way into it. Identity is not formed by what you say about yourself. It is formed by what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. The mind follows behavior, not the other way around. This is where most people get it backwards. They wait to feel confident before acting. They wait to believe before committing. They wait for motivation to arrive so identity can change. But confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result. Confidence is built the same way trust is built, through evidence. And the only evidence the brain accepts is behavior. Every time you do what you said you would do, even in a small way, your brain updates its self-image. Every broken promise weakens it. Every kept promise strengthens it. This is why affirmations fail without action. You can say, "I am disciplined," 1,000 times, but if your behavior says otherwise, the brain rejects the statement. It treats it as noise. But when you wake up early, complete the task, resist the distraction, and follow through, even once, the brain listens. It begins to believe because it has proof. Every small action is a vote for the person who shows up, a vote for the person who finishes, a vote for the person who can be trusted. And identity is nothing more than the sum of those votes over time. You don't become confident by believing in yourself. You become confident by keeping promises to yourself. That's why real change feels unexciting at first. The actions are small, the rewards are delayed, no one applauds. But inside, something important is happening. Your self-image is shifting quietly. And once identity changes, behavior becomes automatic. You no longer force discipline, you express it. This is the shift that matters most. Stop asking, "Who do I want to be?" Start asking, "What would that person do today?" Not tomorrow, not when it's easy, today. Then do the smallest version of that action you can complete consistently. Over time, the question disappears because the identity answers itself. You are not who you say you are what you repeatedly prove. And once action leads identity, everything else falls into place. Concept 5. Most people overthink and under-repeat. Thinking feels productive. It feels intelligent. It gives the sense that progress is happening. You plan, analyze, research, and refine ideas in your head, and your brain rewards you for it. But thinking on its own changes nothing. It creates clarity, not capability. Repeating feels different. Repeating feels boring. There's no novelty, no excitement, no immediate reward. And that's exactly why repetition is where skill is built. Skill is not a product of understanding, it is a product of exposure. The body and mind learn through contact with reality, not through ideas about it. Mastery doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from doing the same correct action thousands of times. Most people stay stuck because they keep searching for a better insight instead of performing a better repetition. They want the perfect strategy, the perfect plan, the perfect moment. But improvement doesn't come from thinking your way forward. It comes from showing up again, making small corrections, and repeating. Overthinking is attractive because it feels safe. There's no risk of failure when you stay in your head. No mistakes are visible. No effort is tested. Repetition, on the other hand, exposes weakness. It creates feedback. It forces adaptation. And that discomfort is exactly what produces growth. Understanding is fragile. Repetition is durable. You can understand a concept today and forget it tomorrow. But when you repeat an action enough times, it becomes embedded. It moves from conscious effort to automatic behavior. This is how professionals are made, not through intelligence, but through volume. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with better ideas. It's filled with consistent execution. Every repetition narrows the distance. Every skipped repetition keeps it wide. This is why progress often looks unimpressive from the outside. It's the same action done again and again and again. But inside, something irreversible is happening. Competence is forming. Confidence is stabilizing. Identity is being shaped. When you stop overthinking and start underreacting to boredom, repetition takes over. And once repetition takes over, growth becomes inevitable. Think enough to choose the right action, then repeat it until thinking is no longer required. That's where mastery lives.
Concept 6. Failure is feedback, not identity. Most people treat failure as a verdict, a final judgment on who they are and what they're capable of. One mistake becomes a story, I'm not good at this. One setback becomes a label, this isn't for me. And in that moment, growth stops, not because progress is impossible, but because identity has been misassigned. Failure is not who you are. Failure is information. Every failed attempt contains data. It shows you what didn't work, where the system broke, and what needs adjustment. But to receive that information, you have to stay emotionally neutral. The moment failure becomes personal, learning shuts down. The brain moves into protection mode instead of improvement mode. This is why beginners quit and experts improve. Experts expect failure. They plan for it. They treat mistakes as part of the process, not evidence of inadequacy. When something goes wrong, they don't ask, "What does this say about me?" They ask, "What does this show me?" That question changes everything. Failure is only dangerous when you attach identity to it. When you say, "I failed, therefore I am bad," you create fear. When you say, "I failed, therefore I learned," you create momentum. Progress requires exposure to error. Skill cannot develop without friction. The absence of failure is not a sign of mastery, it's a sign that you're not pushing far enough to grow. Every new level demands new mistakes. This is where most people stop, not because the path is blocked, but because their ego is. The disciplined mind separates self-worth from performance. It allows mistakes without self-judgment. It stays in the process long enough for correction to occur. And correction, repeated over time, is what creates excellence. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the mechanism. When you stop trying to protect your image and start trying to improve your system, failure loses its power. It becomes temporary. It becomes useful. It becomes expected. And once failure no longer defines you, it no longer controls you. You don't need fewer mistakes. You need faster recovery and better adjustment. That is how progress accelerates. That is how mastery is built. Concept 7. Time rewards what you repeat. Time doesn't reward effort, it rewards consistency. Effort can be intense, emotional, and exhausting, and still produce nothing lasting. Consistency, however, is quiet and patient. It doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't rush results. It simply accumulates. And time responds to accumulation, not intention. Small actions, repeated daily, don't feel powerful in the moment. They feel insignificant, easy to skip, easy to dismiss. But time does not evaluate size. It evaluates frequency. Every repetition is a deposit, and deposits compound whether you notice them or not. This is how ordinary actions create extraordinary results. Progress rarely announces itself. It builds invisibly. Day after day, nothing seems to change, and then suddenly, everything does. This is why people call it overnight success, not because it happened quickly, but because they weren't watching the repetition that came before it. Time is patient, but it is exact. It doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your excuses. It simply multiplies what you consistently do. Feed time distraction, and it multiplies regret. Feed time avoidance, and it multiplies stagnation. Feed time small, disciplined actions, and it multiplies capability, confidence, and freedom. Time is neutral. It takes no sides. That neutrality is what makes it powerful and unforgiving. It will magnify whatever you give it, whether you intend to or not. This is why habits matter more than ambition. Habits decide what time grows on your behalf. Consistency is how you recruit time as an ally. Once consistency is in place, you don't need to chase results. Results arrive on schedule, often later than you want, but always sooner than if you had waited. And when they arrive, they don't look dramatic. They look stable, earned, permanent. Time doesn't reward intensity. It doesn't reward talent. It rewards what you repeat. Choose wisely what you feed it, because time is always listening.